What's up, everybody? My name is Chris Manzo. Thank you for having me on your screens in your homes. It is Super Bowl week. I'm joined by Gene Clemons here today as well. What's up, Gene?
What it do? We down? Absolutely down here in Louisiana. Running. I probably did, somewhere around 35,000 steps yesterday. Running around New Orleans, which is hilarious because New Orleans is not a big city.
I worry for America if the Eagles win because it's going to take an obnoxious fan base and give them even more fuel to be obnoxious. So really, I'm here for the snacks and Kendrick Lamar.
All right, I like it, man. Commercials? Maybe? We'll get those a little bit? Yeah.
Maybe a little bit.
Maybe. Hey, listen, speaking of obnoxious Chiefs fans, look, I know we're all kind of just rooting for a two-peat and to end there, but if they three-peat, if we can just look at this objectively, are they playing in an easy era, or have they established themselves you got to talk about them as some of the greatest teams of all time?
No, I think you really do have to give them their due and acknowledge what they have accomplished. Just the ability to win 3 championships in a row, winning 2 championships in a row is hard enough. Now we're talking about them going for a three-peat. And you look at the competition they have faced, especially in the AFC, it's sort of, I won't say it's a golden age for quarterbacks, but when you figure that they've had to go through the likes of Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and Joe Burrow, that's no easy feat. And the fact that they have done it and have made it look relatively easy. Look, Nando, we're at a point where if you give Patrick Mahomes the ball back with any amount of time, we just all assume that the Chiefs are going to win the football game. That's just a giant groan right now.
Just a giant groan across America.
I know how this movie ends. I've seen it countless times. Let's just fast forward. Sim to end. If we were playing Madden, is kind of how this would.
Yeah.
So absolutely. No, this accomplishment ranks up there with maybe one of the great team accomplishments in all of professional sports.
We are here with the one and only Trevor Sikkema, lead draft analyst over at PFF, and we've got the new official draft hats from New Era. First exclusive too. We like them.
These are sick. These are maybe my favorite draft hats, and I've been watching the draft for 20 years. I love the pins. I love the design. It's a classic look. This is well done. New Era. These are fantastic hats. I got to get a couple of these hats.
Yeah, I do too. So let's go through. We got the top 5 in front of you. So I want to know, you're the expert here. Who do you think's going where? Let's start over first with the Tennessee Titans. Who do you think they get?
So there's 2 types of teams in this league: teams that have a quarterback and teams that don't. And right now, the Titans don't have a quarterback, and so it's not quite last year's quarterback class. But I think Cam Ward is still the guy. I think he is the player that we would take a chance on at number 1 overall. He at least has that confidence. He has an arm talent about him. And he's somebody who will give you the chance to have those 2 to 3 throws that you need to make every single week to win an NFL game. Cam Ward, in my opinion, is that guy in this class. And so the Titans need someone that they can invest in as a franchise quarterback. And that guy to me is Cam Ward. So I'll say Ward.
All right, let's go to the second one here. You see the Cleveland Browns. This one is sick.
Love the logo as well. Love the dog logo.
Yeah,
big
all right.
fan.
So Cleveland Browns number 2 pick overall. Who do you have?
This is a massive wild card because if things are going to get crazy in the draft, they could absolutely be the first team to trade down. And I think they'll be open to all different sorts of things with the trade down. With Myles Garrett saying that he wants out now officially, though, there's a hell of a pass rusher that they have in Abdul Carter, who if they're sticking at number 2, it's going to be hard for them to not pick Abdul Carter with this pick. The stud edge rusher from Penn State, he was phenomenal this year. And this is his first year as an edge rusher. He was still unbelievable. Over 20% pass rush percentage for him this year. And we even saw at the end of the college football playoff run, he's playing with basically one arm because of a shoulder injury, and he was still unblockable. So if he's unblockable with one arm, imagine what he's going to be in the NFL when he's got 2 fully healthy. So especially with Myles Garrett, perhaps on his way out, I'll go Abdul Carter from Cleveland.
Ooh, I like that one. All right, now we've got the 3rd overall pick in the New York Giants. Again, another sick hack.
Yes, I do love it. This is another quarterback spot for me. And again, I understand it's not last year's quarterback class, and so you don't want to sit here and force quarterbacks. But the Giants specifically, especially with what happened with Daniel Jones and how they were left completely without a quarterback this year, I think Shedeur Sanders is their guy. Yeah, I was at the Shrine Bowl in Dallas, Texas, where Shedeur was as well. He met extensively with all 3 of these teams that we have already talked about with quarterback options. But it just feels as though I'm connecting some of the dots. It feels like Shedeur Sanders is going to be a New York Giant one way or another. So I say that they get a new quarterback as well.
All right, the next one that we have right in front of us here, New England Patriots.
Yep.
Who do you have them going with?
This is where I have my favorite and best football player that I think is in this draft going. That's Travis Hunter from Colorado.
Okay.
I think I think that he is going to be absolutely on the Patriots' radar, especially with some quarterbacks that could go right in front of him. He is a guy that they've already got Drake May. And whether they think he's a wide receiver full-time or part-time, I think he's going to play some wide receiver for them. And so I think Travis Hunter immediately, just as one of the most natural, gifted, athletic players that we have in this draft class, he could be a 1,000-yard receiver if he devotes his time to wide receiver as a rookie with the New England Patriots and Drake May. So that would be a combination I would absolutely love. But if he's opposite Christian Gonzalez on the defense side of the ball, that's also pretty awesome. So to me, he is somebody who can impact both sides of the ball for the Patriots. I'll go Travis Hunter here.
And I won't make you touch the Jacksonville Jaguars hat. I won't even turn it your way.
A little bit of bad blood with them and the
my
Buccaneers right now. So thank you, I appreciate that.
It's Tampa Bay Trey over on Twitter, so that's why we're saying it. But who do you have Jacksonville going with in the
They're in a great position. They have the chance to take a really good football player. I think an outside corner could be an option for them, and Will Johnson if he is here. But the guy that I keep going back to as just the player who I think can make their defense the best version of itself is Mason Graham, the defensive tackle from Michigan. He's one of my favorite prospects in this draft class. And if you give me now Josh Hines-Allen, Trayvon Walker, Arik Armstead, and Mason Graham on the same defensive line, that has the potential to be the best defensive line in the NFL. So Liam Cohen's going to have the offensive side of the ball worked out. They're going to be better with him there. His connection with Trevor Lawrence, I think, is going to be a good one. But it's that defensive side of the ball that I think if you draft a guy like Mason Graham, you have really said to yourself this offseason, we got way better on defense and we got way better on offense with the coach and roster decisions that we made there. So I'm Mason Graham from Michigan going into Jags.
I like it. Trevor, thank you so much for doing this, and shout out to New York. We'll get to see these during draft night.
Appreciate it, KB.
All right.
All right, we're back, and now we're going to talk about Matt's projections this segment. We're going to try and turn those projections into some plus EV props, in this game. And this is part of, one of my favorite parts of really breaking down the game is getting into those matchups and looking at the projections and seeing, hey, where are some inefficiencies in the markets? And, how do we take advantage of those as bettors? So we're going to get into our best projection bet that we saw. And Matt, I'm going to start with you. And you got a Kansas City Chief that you're targeting here.
Yeah. So, and I'll just say, kind of starting off here, one of the things that I like to do is look at the projections. I have my own projection set, and then Dwayne McFarland manages the projection set, the official projections for the site. And so you can look at mine, you can look at Dwayne's, and then if you want to aggregate and blend the two of them together, we also have the option for you to do that. So I always enjoy looking at where I am on a player and then seeing where Dwayne is on a player. And if we are both in the same direction on that guy, then I feel really good about the bet because, we have different processes. I tend to sometimes be a little bit lower on projections. Dwayne can sometimes be a little bit higher. And so when I was looking at the projections for Kareem Hunt, I saw that his number in the market was 45.5 rushing yards at DraftKings. But I have him projected at 40. And Dwayne also has him projected exactly at 40. And so that makes me feel really good. Now, Kareem Hunt is the backfield leader. He has overtaken Isaiah Pacheco, but he has been inefficient. The matchup is tough, and the Chiefs' run game has really struggled ever since they moved from left guard to left tackle in Week 14, Joe Thuney, who is an all-pro player, but he is a guard. He is not a tackle. And now with Thuney playing out of position, and then with Mike Caliendo playing at left guard, the left side of that line is not as good as it should be, especially in the running game. So now the interior run game isn't as strong as it was, and their outside run game is still not really that good because they have a guard playing at tackle. And then there's the matchup. The Eagles are number 2 in defensive rush EPA this year. It's just very hard to get going against that defensive line. And so Kareem Hunt, under 45.5 rushing yards at minus 113 at DraftKings. I have this projected at 40. And I think even if Kareem Hunt gets his usual workload, he's just not going to be efficient with that workload. So I do like taking the under in this spot.
I love it. I think that Eagles defense could be the story of the game, but I think in this type of matchup, and correct me if you think I'm wrong here, Friedman, I think we're going to see a lot of different counters and sweeps from Andy Reid and really try and get that Eagles defense going, horizontal from side to side to kind of stretch them out instead of trying to run into that defensive front.
Yeah, I think that's likely. I would say good luck with that. That Eagles defense is just so hard to run against, even if you're not doing it straight up the middle. I have a lot of respect for the guys in the secondary and their ability to tackle, and then the linebackers as well. Zach Bond there, and then Cooper DeJean as your big slot corner, who I think is a fantastic tackler in the open field. So I think it's going to be hard for the Chiefs to get a lot going in the ground game.
Yep, love that bet for Kareem Hunt. Jeff, let's bring it over to you. What do you got? When you looked at the projections, what stuck out to you?
So, yeah, I mean, I'm taking a similar approach in that I'm fading the Kansas City offense a little bit and just, giving a lot of respect to the Eagles defense, which is well-deserved. But I'm fading the passing game, which, again, Mahomes in a dome, it doesn't sound like the greatest idea. But I do think with Super Bowl props especially, again, we have one game. Everyone's hyper-focusing on what do people love to do? Well, they love to bet on the quarterbacks. And I think these passing props for both Mahomes and Hurts are probably just a little bit more inflated than they usually are. So one of the projections that Friedman had on Fantasy Life that stuck out to me was Mahomes at 236 passing yards. His total right now is at 252 passing yards. And again, we're talking about an Eagles defense that allowed 184 passing yards per game in the regular season. Now, last 3 games with the playoffs, they've allowed about 245 yards per game. But again, we had Stafford drop over 300 yards on them. That was kind of an anomaly. That's probably inflating that a little bit. So I like the under. I like the under on Patrick Mahomes at 252. I think this number probably even goes up a little bit before game time because, like I said, everyone likes to bet the overs. No one's betting the under on these props. But I think that is the better view to take at this point. We have it projected with a nice edge. It's almost 20 yards. And look, it is scary to kind of fade Mahomes in a dome in these kind of spots. He's obviously the greatest quarterback in the game, potentially ever, by the time it's all done. But I like playing the projections. I've trusted Friedman's projections all season. It's led to a very profitable season again for me. And I don't have a problem doing it again in the spot. When I see an edge like this with our projections, I usually just bet it blindly. And I'm kind of okay with doing that with Mahomes' passing total in this spot as well.
All right, get ready to witness the 59th battle for the Lombardi Trophy with New Era Cap. The Chiefs and Eagles have claimed their conference titles and are heading to New Orleans for the ultimate showdown. And whether you're rooting for the AFC or the NFC champions, New Era Cap is the official playoff celebration caps worn by the pros. So gear up for a shot at eternal glory with the official cap of Super Bowl 59.
Pete, would you like to lead us off with your favorite 300 bet or better? Where's the long shot money today?
Man, yeah, I feel like, I'm not as deep in the weeds as Jeff with some of these kind of derivative markets, but, some of the stuff that I like to think about are kind of like tail outcomes on some of these player performances. And essentially, whether you're doing a ladder on a book where you can do an SGP, or if you're on Underdog where I do a lot of mine, and you can do a slide, I'm really liking some of the alt slides for receivers like Devontae Smith and Xavier Worthy. These are guys who, when they do hit, they generally hit in a big way, and they're capable of having big plays. And I tend not to like the median numbers of just clearing their 49.5-yard prop. I want to think about what if they get loose for a big play or two, and we get up into the 100 range. So even just sliding both Devontae Smith and Xavier Worthy, which I talked about in an Underdog, to each have 100 yards, that's a 50x payout on Underdog. So playing some of those big play threats as getting loose there and really just smashing their median line is something I'm pretty into this week.
Oh, baby. When he said 50-1, I tensed up a little bit there. I know what app I'll be looking at right afterwards. How about you, Jeff? You have any semi-long shots for us?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love the alternate line calls by Pete, too. I mean, I think that generally, especially in an efficient market like this, looking at the alternate lines, especially at this point in the week, you're probably going to be better off. Again, and John makes a good point. These wouldn't be full unit bets on Devonta Smith to go for 100 yards or whatever. But I wrote up something similar. It's going to be on the site on Friday with Juju Smith-Schuster and his reception props, which you can sort of alt up to like 4 or 5 receptions on DraftKings. So that's one route. I'm going to give you a couple other of those. I think one of the best just pure value bets out there is probably just Jalen Hurts MVP at plus 350. We're talking about the quarterback for a team who's like, a 1-point underdog. And he's plus 350. I mean, generally we see quarterbacks go off much shorter than this. And I know Saquon Barkley is there, but I think that's a really good price if you're looking for a semi-long shot on Jalen Hurts. And then Juju Smith-Schuster, a guy I'm apparently going to be heavily invested in this week. Anytime touchdown plus 500. Route rate went up 58% of the snaps last week. I think just with the matchup with the Eagles, Juju's actually going to be fairly important for the Chiefs in this game. We'll see. That could also blow up in my face given how many receivers the Chiefs have, but I do like Juju for an anytime touchdown. I think that's a decent number of plus 500, but really like that Hurts one at plus 350. I think if you're looking for an MVP and you like the Eagles, that's kind of a good way to play it.
Let's go to the halftime shows. Marcus, this I have way more recall on, and I think I don't really have, and by the way, another amazing article by Chris Allen. Like it's very funny and walks you through it, even if you disagree with the list. You said you were at the Katy Perry game.
I was.
Live.
I was there, and I had a weird angle on it, and I just remember she comes out on a giant animatronic animal, which I thought was a giraffe at the time, and then afterwards realizing that she opened the show with Roar, I was like, oh, it's probably a lion. I just had a weird angle on the whole thing.
Dude, for me, like, I don't have like elements that make an amazing show, but the one that stands out to me, and I'm not like, I appreciate Beyonce for like her being amazing, but like, it's just a short concert. Like I didn't lose my mind over it. What I thought was amazing was someone in her camp was like, let's get Destiny's Child back together and make this something you can't get anywhere else. And like, that's like, I remember, and maybe you were the same, I might have been 13 or 14 when New Edition got back together on the MTV video. I watched that entire thing. When's it happening? And finally I lost my mind. Like, I need a reunion at some point. I need someone cool to walk out you're not expecting. I don't know if you're the same way.
No, I mean, it's going to be interesting too. And I know we'll talk about Kendrick in a little bit, but I think, I remember the year before the Katy Perry, or like the year after Katy Perry, was Coldplay was technically the headliner, but I think Coldplay realized that we can't carry this thing alone. So they brought out Bruno Mars and Beyonce, who basically just dwarfed them on their own halftime show. I mean, it's something sort of like that I think, we're looking forward to. Yeah, that's part of it now, right? It's like, who are the guests? It was a couple years ago when it was in LA when you had Dr. Dre and Snoop and Eminem and Mary J. Blige and Kendrick. I mean, like that was, for people of a certain age, I'm people of a certain age. It was like, this was like the greatest thing ever. It also was a reminder that maybe we're old because, new hot upcoming artists don't do the Super Bowl. They don't do the Super Bowl, right? Like they just don't.
Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah.
I mean, 50 Cent was hanging upside down, right? I mean, like,
right? Yeah, he looked kind of like 75 Cent in that Super Bowl, right? He was a little bit bigger than when we first met Curtis Jackson so many years ago.
But I mean, if you only know him from Spotify or whatever, like you don't understand why is this guy hanging upside down? What's going on here? There's a reason for this. It's like that, but that's what I'm saying. Like it's you're in a room, you got a bunch of people maybe around you, people are talking, you need that. Oh, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like Scooby-Doo take off the mask kind of thing, and like out comes Taylor Swift, right? Like
that would for sure break the. Although, like what. Would that be like Taylor Swift and Kendrick unveiling a new song together if she just showed up and they just, hey, by the way, buy our new single. It's on Spotify.
Yeah, that can happen these days because you can record it like today and be like, okay, it's ready. We're going to have it drop.
Let's go.
Or they could just do like, I don't know, man, like at the Grammys, like when Bruno Mars and Lady Gaga did that California Dreaming.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure a bunch of people went and got, right? Like just pick a song and sing it together and we're done. Who cares? It could be Walk This Way. Right? Like what's got rap and singing?
I will tell you
that
this.
SWV song.
You talk about the halftime shows, like the Bruno Mars show, like when he headlined his own show at the Super Bowl, because to that point I was like kind of so on Bruno Mars. I knew a couple of his songs. I didn't have a really strong opinion one way or another, and I watched that halftime show and I came away thoroughly impressed with Bruno Mars as a performer after I saw him at the Super Bowl.
we are kind of like mind melded on this one because I thought the exact as I was going through the list, I'm like, oh, that Bruno Mars show is when I like.
Yeah,
I really got like I didn't get into Bruno, but I'm like, oh, I think I like Bruno Mars.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I've seen a couple clips of him. I'm like, who's this pompous Michael Jackson ripoff guy? You know, and then I watch the show. I'm like, he can drum. I'm like, this is awesome.
This guy's actually really good. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I like Bruno Mars. Let's go to Kendrick Lamar though. Enough about Bruno Mars. You know, he's got enough. My kids love Bruno Mars. He's on in the house all the time. Kendrick Lamar, man, like, do you? Have you thought about like what we're gonna see here? I mean, not like us, of course, but like,
of course,
like, what's gonna happen?
Yeah, so I do know this is not a surprise that he's already announced that SZA is going to be one of the guests, which means we're certainly going to hear probably all of the stars from the Black Panther soundtrack. I know there's a new song that they have together on his latest album. Maybe they do that one as well. So, I think that kind of gave away at least one of the things he's going to perform. I am, as somebody who is a Kendrick Lamar fan, I really have been going through his catalog and trying to figure out what can he perform that is going to actually be okay for a Super Bowl audience. Like, my fear is like Kendrick at the Super Bowl is sort of like when they try to put Pulp Fiction on over-the-air television and everything that's worthwhile has to be edited out of it. So I'm very, very interested. The one thing I do think is going to happen is that when he performs Not Like Us, and he cuts the music and has the whole Superdome scream the phrase A minor, that Drake's attorneys are going to be handing out subpoenas to everyone as they leave Super Bowl 59 and make them part of one big lawsuit.
Kendrick Lamar's in on it. That's the twist that we're going to have in the halftime show. I get a cut of this class action lawsuit.
Whatever, this is this defamation lawsuit. I'm getting a chunk of it right now.
We didn't see on the list of Super Bowl halftime shows the Janet Jackson. I mean,
which
it was a good show. I mean, it's
a lifelong crush on Janet Jackson. That one's always going to be close to my heart for sure.
It was, yeah. I feel like it's, and I actually read an article. I think it might have been the Rolling Stone article that we were talking about on the break. Like, it's it really went into like how Janet Jackson's career has never been the same since that moment. I'm like, well, that's I guess you kind of that's a bummer, but I like seeing her as a guest spot here would be awesome, right? Like, I mean, Absolutely. Like Janet Jackson coming back out, stop the show, let everyone give her a standing ovation for like a minute, and then just do a song, any song.
Yeah, I do think Lil Wayne's a good possibility. I know he was very disappointed that he wasn't selected to do the halftime show in his hometown. He and Kendrick do have a past relationship, so maybe Kendrick sort of throws him a bone a little bit and lets him come out and do a song or whatever just to get the love in New Orleans.
If you're Drake, and you're right, like Trombone Shorty's the next guy I go to for like New Orleans, and then who sings Do a Rebirth? Maybe there's some Rebirth element there, but I don't think like the nation's gonna know who Rebirth is.
Right.
You should. If you're Drake and Kendrick Lamar is like, hey man, why don't you just come out, shake your head, say a minor, and then we'll do a fun song together, man. And the country needs unity right now. Like, would you or I guess Canada and the United States need unity right now. If you're Drake, are you like, yeah, let's do it, man? You could flip your image completely if you're all of a sudden like in on the joke at the Super Bowl, and it's not just the Super. It's like 200 million YouTube plays by midnight, I'm sure.
No, Lucy, I'm not letting you pull the football away from me again. I'm not. I think I'm a little bit too scarred right now. Like, hey man, like there's a time for reconciliation. I don't, if I'm Drake, I'm a little bit skeptical. I'd be a little bit hesitant to come on the world's biggest stage and do this right now.
I want to talk about our friends over at DraftKings because Super Bowl 59 is right around the corner, and it's the perfect time to get on the action with our partners at DraftKings Sportsbook. Right now, they're giving all new customers $200 in bonus bets instantly after betting just $5. This is your shot to make every last play a moment to be remembered. Don't wait. Download the DraftKings app now and sign up using code FANTASYLIFE. That's Fantasy Life. The crown is yours. So sorry to interrupt your could you get into a boot on ball, and what specifically would you say is the most important part? Because that's going to be a tough you're not exactly asking someone to make a grilled cheese there. There's a lot of elements that go into that. And then what are we dipping that in? Because that goes into our ranch conversation as well. You want to create something a little bit more in the sense of like something a little more kick to it, I would imagine, right? Almost more
I
don't want to say spicy mayo, but in that world.
Yeah, so your boudin ball being your pork sausage, rice mixture together, and then it's breaded and deep fried, right? So I think a lot of times people think
like
about
a hush puppy?
Think about it. What's that?
Is it like a hush puppy?
It's not breaded on the inside, so not like the hush puppy, because the hush puppy has, the breading or bread element inside of it. It's all rice and pork, kind of milled together, into this consistency. And then I could be wrong, but I've done it where I freeze the ball, then come back and coat it before I deep fry it, so that I can keep that ball's consistency together. Pause. Anyway, my thought process on it is that it feels more difficult than what it really is. There's a lot of recipes out there to make it easy for you. And then as far as the sauce, because it's going to be, you got to have some kick in those boudin balls. You want to have some type of cream sauce. I don't know if it's a spicy mayo or if it's a mayo base, like it might be a Greek yogurt based or, something of that nature. But you want to have kind of like a sauce to be able to kind of cool it off with a counteracting flavor to it to kind of round out the balls. But super yummy, really tasty, not as hard as people would think they are. A lot of your basic, I like to cook people could pull off some version of it.
And for all the great things the Chiefs have done during this run, the one thing they haven't really done well is draft wide receivers. I mean, even the one guy that turned out to be great, Tyreek Hill, was a 5th-round pick that they pretty much drafted as kind of a special teams guy. I don't think they had any expectations that he was going to blossom into one of the most explosive receivers in the league. Yet Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, give credit to Steve Spagnuolo on that defense as well. They have figured out ways to sort of make it happen, even if it looks a little bit different every single time. The end result always seems to be the same.
What about do you think you talk about stopping Patrick Mahomes. And I know, again, like to bring fantasy into it, we've seen Patrick Mahomes have not great fantasy games. Like in the middle of the season, people were like, should I drop him for Russell Wilson? Like it was like Patrick Mahomes, like what happened? But, there's fantasy and there's real life. And it's kind of like maybe the Eagles can contain him. But does that matter if Patrick Mahomes is throwing for 220 and 2 touchdowns? Like that's a winning Super Bowl line for Patrick Mahomes, right?
Yeah, that's sort of it, is that you say contain, and statistically, sure, absolutely. They can depress his numbers, right? And if he finished, like you mentioned, if he finished with 220 and 2 touchdowns, I don't think anybody would be surprised by it. But containing Patrick Mahomes in the sense of, can you stop him from making that key gotta have it play on 3rd down? No one's been able to figure that one out yet, right? I mean, if I'm a defensive coordinator, if I'm a defensive player, he has to be the most frustrating guy, because not only does he have all these weird arm angles and different arm slots that he can throw the football from, he's just fast enough to make you angry, right? Like you get pressure on him, you get him in the pocket, things start to collapse, and next thing you know, he escapes for a 12-yard gain and he moves the sticks and the drive keeps going. And so that is the key when you talk about containing Patrick Mahomes. It's not, did you hold him to less than 250 yards? It's when the Chiefs had to have a play, did you find a way to corral Patrick Mahomes? And generally speaking, the answer has always been no.
It feels like everyone is now just like, oh, the Chiefs can't lose it all. They're impossible. They're Teflon. Impossible to beat the Chiefs. I don't know. I think this Eagles team is better, and I'm just going to take them at plus money. I think that's the play. Do I feel great about betting as Patrick Mahomes? No, I feel like an idiot, but I do think I'm on the right side.
It does feel like we're kind of outsmarting ourselves. Now, myself, obviously, I'm on the Eagles as well. And it's not just because of my fandom. It's not just the fact that, I'm an Eagles fan and I want us to, parade down Broad Street, after winning a Super Bowl. It's really some key matchups in this game where I think the Eagles hold an advantage. Patrick Mahomes seems invincible, right? If he has the ball at the end of the game, he's going to win. He's going to score. We saw it last time the Eagles played the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. But what the Eagles can do in this matchup against what I think is a very vulnerable Kansas City defense, which, ranks 9th out of the 14 playoff teams in EPA per rush in the playoffs, is keep the ball out of his hands when the game matters most. And they can do that with the running game. They can do that with Saquon Barkley. I like a couple of the key matchups and how the Chiefs defense really is based upon the strength of their secondary and their corners. But, the Eagles have the best man beater in the NFL in A.J. Brown. You can't jam that guy. He's going to throw you in the third row. So I think that there's a lot of things on the field matchups that help. Do they have the coaching advantage? Probably not, right? Vic Fangio is a great coach, but Spags is a great coach as well. And, Andy Reid and, being a play caller obviously has the edge there. But I just think with that running game, if they have the ability to keep the ball out of Kansas City's hands when the game matters most, I think that could be a big factor. I looked at that Bills-Chiefs game in the AFC Championship, and what I thought was interesting is, James Cook only touched the ball on 5 drives for the Bills. They scored 3 touchdowns and a field goal. They're only stopped once on downs. That was when Allen had that fumble in 4th and 1. So, I really think a little bit more of James Cook probably could have went a long way. And I think the Eagles are a team that are going to do that. And, those 4th and 1s are going to be converted when the Eagles are doing it. We know that. That's the best thing that they do is convert 4th and 1. So I took the Eagles here on the money line. I agree with Friedman and the fact that if you're going to take the dog, you might as well just take the money line there. But I think it's going to be a very interesting matchup that's going to come down. It could come down to who has the ball last, and that might just be the Philadelphia Eagles.
Can I jump in
really quick? You don't agree with me, buddy? Come on.
Yeah, let me jump in really quick. I will say, if it comes down to who has the ball last, I don't really trust Jalen Hurts in this situation to be able to move his team down the field. I do trust Mahomes. And really, I will say, I don't disagree with anything you guys have said. The Eagles certainly have the better roster. I don't think there's any question about that. I would say they have the edge at quarterback. They have the edge at head coach. And in a game this tight, kicking actually matters. And I think they have the edge at kicker. Yeah, and so if you're going to give me those 3 things in a spread of only 1.5, I'm going to take it. But would I be surprised at all if the Eagles win this game? No. They could have won the last Super Bowl that they were in against the Chiefs. They were favored in that game, and this is a better team than that one. So if the Eagles win, it would not at all be a surprise.
Let's get the next one going. This one is a little bit more interesting. Probably has a better chance of going over based on what I was saying before, where it's total players per team to just make a reception. So just real quick, I'll lay out the pricing. We got Chiefs are over under 8.5. It's plus 180 to the yes, minus 175 to the no. I have a hard time going that way because, again, it could be Gray and you're going to get Worthy. You might get, Hopkins and Juju. Obviously, Kelsey. You might get a catch from both of the backs. Kansas City not really, actually, Pete, you can tell I listen to your work. He talks about target trees often. And I actually like to relate that to actual trees, where like a short and stubby one is a bonsai, and a really tall, kind of thick one would be a redwood. Philly is a redwood. Very predictable. We know where it's going. Kansas City, not so much. So I think that's where I'd be on its surface, is I'm more of an over for the Chiefs, under for the Eagles. Eagles is 5.5, which again feels very low for a game that we might be expecting some degree of creativity in the bag, plus 100 to the yes, minus 130 to the no. That one a little more palatable as far as pricing. Jeff, you want to start this one off?
Yeah, the Eagles one is pretty interesting, man. I mean, 6 players is really low, like to hit an over. We've got A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Goddard, and probably Saquon Barkley are locks. That's 4 players right there. But then you go through their roster, like you said, John, and it's like, who else is catching passes? Calcutta, the backup tight end. Calcaterra, Kenneth Gainwell, maybe Dotson catches a pass. Dotson's like over under is one catch. So I think I'm kind of with you. I think that I'd rather actually take the plus 140 on the Chiefs, who have like 4 wide receivers that they spread the ball out to, 3 backs who could catch a pass, and Kelsey and Noah Gray. So yeah, I would probably lean Chiefs here for an over. Probably just stay away from the Eagles. Although the Eagles, like I said, it's such a low number. But I think you made a good example there at the start. Like their route tree is just like it's three guys. So I don't know. Lean a little bit with the Chiefs here. Probably just stay away from the Eagles.
Pete, how about you? Take overall on the play, and then whether or not you'd actually pull the trigger.
I kind of like the Eagles over in that I do think, obviously, there's the big three in the passing game. Barkley's going to catch a pass. I do think Kenny Gainwell is going to catch a pass in this game. They still like using him in those 2-minute situations. That gets us to 5. And so then you're just saying, can you bink one random catch to Jahan Dotson, to Calcaterra? I kind of think you can. So I like having kind of the moat of that really low number. It almost feels like it's kind of overreacting to a super condensed offense. So I'd rather take shots on that and then maybe play it the other way and say, hey, what if the Chiefs do condense a little bit more in the Super Bowl? We've seen Xavier Worthy really step up. We know Travis Kelce becomes a focal point of the offense. And we've already seen guys like Justin Watson be pretty relegated in this offense. If all of a sudden Juju comes in, is running the majority of those 3 wide receiver sets, I feel like these numbers might be kind of tricking us in that the Eagles might be a little more expanded and the Chiefs could be a little more condensed.
Is the number 1 to number 5 picks in your fantasy draft, right? You got to get jambalaya. You got to get some gumbo. You gotta probably find some crawfish, but that's issue because you really should smell the crawfish before you walk in the door. If you don't have a sense that this is where crawfish is, then it's probably not going to be the best. Definitely grab you some crab cakes. Grab you a po' boy. They make a po' boy out of everything, the way it should be and intended. Catfish po' boy, so good. If you can find a crawfish po' boy, wow! Like you hit the mother load. Exist in there, and then stay away from any of your beers that might be your normal staples. Find the local brews. New Orleans does a fantastic job with their local brews. They have stuff that's light. They've got stuff that's heavy. They've got stuff that's going to put some hair on your chest. All of it. Go into the local brews and really figure out what's your Bud Light equivalent in the local brew. What's your Heineken equivalent in the local brew, and then kind of navigate from there because the social atmosphere of it is going to take care of itself, right? You're going to find some places, you're going to do some things, you'll be fine. But when it comes to eating, you want to stick to those basic top 5 traditionals, and then go from there. Have people say, hey, have you ever tried crawfish pie? No, I want to try crawfish pie. That type of stuff. And then get those local brews in you for sure.
Let's look at some Saquon props real quick. I just want to, again, you Saquon Mahomes, you're probably going to have to parlay some of this stuff or go on to one of these weird and wacky ones to derive some joy out of winning something. Even 2 touchdowns for Saquon Barkley isn't even 3-1, dude. What do you look at here and be like, give me that?
It's funny because originally I was sort of on that rushing yards number because it was a lot bigger earlier in the week and it has sort of calmed down a little bit. So now you think, well, maybe he can hit that, right? 110 yards, even against the Chiefs. I think the volume of opportunities he's going to get makes that certainly possible. The 2 touchdowns, I could see that not hitting just because we know the tush push is still very much going to be in effect. It's funny because, I'm sure that DeAndre Swift was sitting in Chicago and every now and then checking in on Eagles games and seeing, Saquon get tackled at the 1 and then line up. And I'm sure he was doing the Leonardo DiCaprio pointing meme. I remember that. I remember how that worked. Yeah. So I do think that's going to be a possibility in what I anticipate to be maybe a lower scoring game. I don't think we see either of these teams get into the 30s necessarily because both these defenses are so good. So, I think the opportunities for rushing touchdowns are going to be lessened. And if you have Jalen Hurts taking 1 or 2 of those opportunities with the tush push, then that is necessarily going to take away from Saquon's chances.
It should be 11-1, really. I mean, unless you say, in the 2 weeks, Nick Sirianni, the genius, he's going to correct this down at the 1 yard line thing that has followed him around so much that it's a thing.
Before we get into the actual game, I know you're our resident Cowboys fans. I'm obviously our resident Eagles fans. I wanted to see, what are the odds you think that by the end of the show, we can get a Go Birds out of you?
0. The odds are
Zero.
-0. Yeah.
We're not going to get a go Birds. Maybe after we watch Saquon run a couple touchdowns during the game, your little Grinch Eagles heart could grow 2 times its size by the end.
Okay, if he runs a couple touchdowns, I will be happy for me and my bankroll, but I will still not be happy for the Eagles.
Probably not going to get a go Birds.
I'll make up for Friedman's anti-Philly stance here, Mark. Don't worry. I'm a Nick Foles guy from back in the day, so you'll get all the Eagles talk from me on this show.
Absolutely. Sounds great. And guys, we have a ton of great coverage during the week. So make sure you're checking out the website. You can see Matt's projections on the website. Jeff, I know you got a great long shots article. Everybody loves a good long shot. So, keep an eye on the website all during the week and make sure that we are, staying up to date with all the content. But guys, let's get into the game. I want to start with the spread. Very close spread. Almost a coin flip game. Kansas City Chiefs -1.5 point favorites, -125 on the money line. Eagles +1.5, +105 on the money line. A rematch from Super Bowl we saw 2 years ago that went down to the wire. Matt, I'm going to kick it off to you, even though I think I have a pretty good idea of where you're going. How do you evaluate this one from an odds perspective?
My projection is very close to this. I have this projected at 2.1. favoring the Chiefs. And so you could say, is there really any edge here? And probably not. That said, it's Patrick Mahomes at less than a field goal, which means there might be some edge. So, I'm betting it. It's the final game of the season. Of course, I'm going to have a bet on the Super Bowl. And looking at this, I would rather take the spread instead of the money line. There's kind of the general guideline. If you like a dog, you take the money line. If it's a short dog, if you like a short favorite, you take the spread. If the favorite wins, it's probably by field goal. It's probably not just by 1 point. So I prefer the -10 odds that we have with the -1.5 versus the -125, -130 odds that you would have to bet for the Chiefs at a pick'em. So I do prefer the Chiefs, and really just Patrick Mahomes. Kind of look at the trends. Patrick Mahomes on a neutral field, 5-0 for his career against the spread. Patrick Mahomes not at home, 37-24-3 against the spread. Mahomes is a favorite of a field goal or less, 15-7 against the spread for his career. Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs, 14-6 against the spread. Mahomes versus winning teams, 37-28-2 against the spread. And then, of course, the hashtag revenge game for Andy Reid. Andy Reid against the Chiefs, 4-1 against the spread. That man does not pull punches going against the team that dumped him stupidly 12 years ago. So I'm going with the Chiefs in this game. Again, the projections say that the market is pretty efficient, but it's the final game of the season. I'm going to have a bet on it, and I do like the Chiefs in this spot.
Hey, you're not actually allowed to drink in a beer commercial?
Since when?
You gotta wait till it's done. Oh.
5,
4, 3, 2, 1.
How do I bring a little bit of that New Orleans experience to my Super Bowl party up here?
Tony's. The Tony seasoning. It's all over the place. Yeah.
The Cajun seasoning, right? The green.
The Cajun seasoning. You got me?
Yep, I'm with you.
Yeah,
So you're putting that on the wings. We're putting that on everything.
You can put it on. The good thing about it is it's like seasoning salt, right? So you can put it on anything, but it's going to give you that little extra kick, and the flavors that makes you think about being in New Orleans. So if you're putting together wings and you don't know, you want to get a different wing flavor. Hey, this is a New Orleans themed party. I might get some wings and do a play on like a lemon pepper and put the Tonys on it instead of the pepper as like the seasoning for it. You might use it kind of like a dry rub. You might use it as like a base to soak your wings in to give it really more of that Cajun flavor. If you want to put them on a grill and kind of smoke your wings. It's just a lot of different ways that you can get that Tony's to be implemented. And you just want to have it out on the table so that people can use that instead. Like, hey, be careful. You don't need as much of that Tony's as you do of that Laurie season. That Tony's going to take care of business. So I think that's the quick and easy way to bring a little New Orleans to you if you're looking to try to like elevate the food and give it more of a New Orleans feel.
I promised to fill in the blanks. I made some. Jalen Hurts will play blank than Patrick Mahomes. Jalen Hurts will play blank than Patrick Mahomes.
Statistically better. I think the numbers are going to be bigger for Jalen Hurts than they will be for Patrick Mahomes. Now, obviously, we talked in the first segment about Mahomes and just the little quirky things he does that sort of help him win football games. So I don't know if Jalen Hurts is necessarily going to do that because I think a lot of the game plan will revolve around Saquon Barkley. But I think if you look at the passing numbers, the rushing numbers, I think even the total touchdowns that he contributes to, those are probably going to be better than Patrick Mahomes. Whether that's enough to win the game, I think that is going to be up for debate. I think at this point.
We can take a look in a minute at some of these Jalen Hurts props. Real quick, I want to take a look at the last Super Bowl in which we saw these two play against each other. I don't know if people forget, like Jalen Hurts has gone so up and down in like public opinion and like, is he good? Is he, who's Nate Sudfeld? Remember the whole Nate Sudfeld thing early in his career?
Man.
Let me tell you what, as a Giants fan, we remember. So like Jalen Hurts was amazing, a couple of years ago against Patrick Mahomes. And, again, the glory isn't there. But as fantasy guys looking at numbers, like check that out on the screen there, man. Like Jalen Hurts had 3 rushing touchdowns in the Super Bowl. He should be legendary. And then they lost. And so I guess not.
History is littered with guys who've had great Super Bowls or made great plays in Super Bowls that are lost to the dustbin because their team couldn't secure a win. I also think the difference, though, was that year, that offense really did live and die on the performance of Jalen Hurts. I mean, they had other talented guys around him, but really he was the engine that made it go. This year, the onus isn't quite as much on him. I mean, you look at his statistical numbers for the season, he passed for fewer than 300 yards, or 3,000 yards, I should say. It wasn't necessarily a big statistical year for him, but that's what happens when you have a monster of a running back going for $2,000 behind you in the backfield. So I still think he can put up a good number. I still think he has to have a good game for the Eagles to win. So I wouldn't be surprised if, again, we sort of do the side-by-side with Mahomes and the numbers lean in favor of Jalen Hurts. But we'll see whether or not the rest of it, or if that Eagles defense can do enough to stop Mahomes and get them a win.
Let's take a look at some Jalen Hurts props for this game, for this year. I don't know if he's going to score those. So for those of you playing along at home, score 3 touchdowns does not count the passing touchdown. This is Jalen Hurts waltzing into the end zone 3 times, or maybe, someone throwing him a touchdown pass, perhaps. Marcus, these are at least a little more fun, I think, than Patrick Mahomes is.
Right.
There's a little more upside if you put $5 on this. But what does anything jump out to you? Maybe like the passing touchdowns over, but still, that's like $5 wins you 3. Like, who cares, right?
Right. I mean, exactly. I was saying the same thing, like the anytime touchdown, right? Like that's not necessarily going to be the most exciting, thing for you to root for because it feels, if Jalen Hurts does not contribute a touchdown in this game, something has gone terribly wrong, I think, for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think the passing yards is sort of interesting right there. Again, I think he has a decent passing game. Look, why not have a little fun with the 3 touchdown game? It seems unlikely, especially against such a good defense, but it does give you a little bit of something to kind of get excited about, especially when they get near the end zone.
That's it, man. I want to have a little buzz. I want to hang out with some people I like, and I want to root for random stuff like this, right? And like just the high, like I've got $5 on that, 30-1 bet. That okay, let me do the math here real quick.
Will a third player make a pass attempt? So that one's listed right now. We're using DraftKings Sportsbook, everybody. That one's listed at plus 180, which is a 35% implied probability. I think that's where this one comes down to, right? It's not really an objective kind of statement to say, yes, there will be or won't be. It's just whether or not you have a 1 out of 3 chance. Pete, what do you think about the third player making a pass? Could be anybody, lineman, wide receiver, and the likes.
Yeah, I think the smart money is probably on the no here. I know some teams have players that they're more willing to use the gadget stuff. Like if we were talking about the Niners, they've used Jawan Jennings for some of that kind of stuff before. I don't know. I'll throw it to Jeff if he has any more, intel on this, but it doesn't strike me that either the Chiefs or the Eagles kind of have that go-to gadget guy that they would actually draw up the play or trust to throw the ball in a key situation.
Yeah, my inkling here is I kind of agree with Pete. Like the smart money's probably on the under. Me being a non-smart person, I've already bet the over in this, and I'm trying to find other ways to go about it. But I think when you look at these two teams, they're not really set up, like Pete said, to do this. I don't think the Eagles for sure. If I had to guess a team is going to have a third player come in and throw a pass, it's going to be the Chiefs because Andy Reid has 2 weeks to prepare. Maybe he's got some kind of like Kelsey to Mahomes thing in the bag or something like that. DeAndre Hopkins has thrown a few passes. I would be pretty shocked if Nick Sirianni went off script because he's got Saquon Barkley. He's got Jalen Hurts. He's just going to run the ball. And if he does go off script and it doesn't work, like he's going to get killed in Philadelphia. So I think that if we see a trick play, it's going to be the Chiefs. I do think there's a low probability. But like I said, this is kind of a fun one just to bet because you're going to be sweating the entire game. So I'm going to take it.
What is a Super Bowl show without predictions, Marcas Grant? You go first.
I'm going to take the Chiefs to complete the three-peat, much to the chagrin of about half of America, probably more than half of America here. I'm going to say 31-28. I'm going to say that Patrick Mahomes claims yet another Super Bowl MVP. In my hot take from earlier, Travis Kelce announces his retirement and proposes to his billionaire pop star girlfriend all at the same time.
Good for him. Good for them. They found love. Chiefs 31-22 for me. But who cares what I say? Marcus, what's your bold fantasy prediction for now? I mean, we both said 31.
31.
What's your bold?
So I'm going to be a little bit of a downer. I'm going to be like a little bit of a Dudley Downer here. I'm going to say that Saquon Barkley is not going to be a top 5 running back in fantasy next year just because the track record of guys who've run for 2,000 yards and their follow-up seasons, there's been a significant drop-off. And so I think you still get him with a decent year, but not worthy of being a top overall pick and maybe not finishing in the top 5 at his position.
SB2K. Mine is his former teammate, Daniel Jones, who I think is just going to YOLO his way into let's call it a good season. I think he's got like 3,000 yards, a bunch of touchdowns, goes into the playoffs. I don't know where he's going to do it, but I mean, hey, I think it's going to happen. Daniel Jones, career resurrection after leaving a New York team.